take the session forward with his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shamita Kumar. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to moderate this session. A very important session, I would say. It's also an honor for our country and the entire Indian geospatial community that India has been chosen to host the second UNWGIC conference later this year. It's an opportunity for us, the members of the entire geospatial fraternity of the country, to showcase some of the amazing work that has been done on geospatial India over the last 30 plus years. And the participants and the contributors have been all contributors to the ecosystem, government user organizations, and some of them are right here in this conference right now, the academia, the NGOs, research organizations, and last but not the least, the Indian geospatial industry. The Indian geospatial industry has been at the forefront on the adoption of Indian. What am I saying? Let me start again. Indian geospatial industry has been at the forefront of adoption of geospatial technologies in India by development of India-specific software and solution products, content development, and hardware design and development, and of course, capacity building. India has also emerged as a major source of geospatial services by users across the globe. It started as a source of low-cost data development work back in 90s, but today Indian industry is providing absolutely high-end services to discerning customers across the globe, comprising development enterprise systems, managed services, cloud-based services, and so on. One of the major changes which happened over the last decade or so has been the emergence of young entrepreneurs who had joined the geospatial ecosystem of the country by way of startups. Today, we have a very vibrant startup ecosystem. I don't have the number, but in my own company, SC India, we have more than 50 participants in our startup program. The actual number of startups, I'm sure, is much, much larger. In the session today, we had, as Dr. Shamita Kumar said, we invited the startups to come and share the work they're doing, some of which can be showcased at the UNWGIC conference. The companies that are going to be participating today are involved in a variety of activity related to geospatial, be it development of software and solutions, products, providing services across different technologies, whether it's LiDAR, AI, machine learning, IoT, big data analytics, and addressing a variety of application areas, including water conservation, climate change, space sciences, among others. We have 6 speakers today, and we are starting a bit late, so I request all the speakers to kindly manage within 10 to 12 minutes so that we can leave aside sufficient time for a discussion at the end of the session.
For this opportunity to talk over here. And as you said, yes, we have to do something related with the SDGs. So my talk is related to the SDG 7. And this is about the solar potential estimation. And solar potential estimation can be done at the city-wide scale, and also it can be done at a very local scale. So I'm doing both because we are working in both of these. So down there are a couple of people who have been associated with me in doing this work from IIT Kanpur as well as from my company Geo. And so I acknowledge their support. In fact, one of the works that we are doing is on land consolidation, Chakbandi, and due to time constraint, I could not bring it here, but that is also very much related to the SDGs. Here, I'll quickly go through this. Well, no need to talk about that why solar energy. That is very much understood. And India is also home to International Solar Alliance. And we have a big target for our solar energy. One thing that we note here that out of this total solar energy that we are talking about, 40% is designed to be from the rooftops. So always there is a question now, how to select the right rooftop for placing the solar PV panels? This is a question. Traditionally, it is done through some apps or through the charts or these images here over here. However, these apps have got a limitation that they don't consider the surrounding obstructions. And there are some hardware tools, and in USA they are quite common, and people are using those, but they are not yet that common here in India. But those hardware tools are quite specialized, and only a person who is trained in that, only an industry can use it. So what is the way that we can estimate the obstructions around the rooftop and then make an assessment how these obstructions are casting shadows on the rooftop? So that is the idea for our work here. Now, this is one example, and the images that I'm showing you here, some solar panels are put on the rooftops. And as you can notice here, these images are from a very reputed place, and I will not name it. And however, the way the solar panels are kept here, these solar panels will fall under shadow during a certain period of time in the day. What it does, it will limit the return on investment. Also, it will result to a failed project. Sometimes, yeah, this also results in the hottest spot in the panels, which will result into the burning of the panels also. So what we are looking forward to now, an approach which can consider the local obstructions. For example, around a building, there may be other buildings, there may be other trees. So how to do this? The approach in a very general manner, in a very generic way, the approach is, if I'm standing at a point here, for example, this is the point I'm standing here. Somehow we want to estimate what is the view set around this point. When we define the view set, the meaning is the line over here that you see is the line. Under this line, we call it as non-sky area, and above this is the sky area. So with the help of some technology, we'll try to estimate this view set. And when the sun is in the sky area, that means this particular point over here will be illuminated. When the sun is behind this non-sky area, the point over here will not be illuminated. So that is how we will decide whether a particular point will be illuminated or not. Second thing is, we also now want to know where the sun moves throughout the year, because in order to do this, whether this point is being illuminated or not, we need to know throughout the year for every time interval that where the sun is. And for this, we will be making use of a solar model. I will show you that later. And once we have decided, okay, this particular point, let's say, if I'm talking of 6-minute intervals, and I'm talking of 8 hours in a day. So out of total 292,000 instances of 6 minutes, how many instances this particular point is being illuminated? We can determine that. Once we have determined it, we also want to determine in those instances, once this point is being illuminated, how much is the total solar irradiance reaching this place? Because solar irradiance will depend upon the time of the year, the time of the day, and so many other things. So for this, we will do another modeling using the radiative transfer. And all those instances, once this point is being illuminated and the quantum of the illumination irradiance is also determined, we can then integrate it throughout the year. What it will do, it will give me the total value of the insolation at this place. So this is how we go. So I will be talking about two approaches here. One approach is for the city-wide scale, and this is the LiDAR-based method. So here I'm showing you an example of the LiDAR data. This example is from India, and from the LiDAR data, we generate the DSM, the digital surface model. Now we know the digital surface model is a raster where each grid cell has got the height. So our next job is over this DSM on a grid cell, how to determine, because that's the point that I'm talking about earlier in the earlier slide is, for example, let's say this point. So how to determine whether this point will be under the sun or not at a certain time in the year. So we need to do certain modeling for this. So for this first step that we want to do, that at a particular time, where is sun? So to determine this location of the sun, we use a model that is the Greener model. And with this Greener model, what we can do, over a point here, at a point in time, across the year, at any point, wherever the sun is, we can determine the position of the sun in terms of its azimuth and in terms of its elevation angle. So throughout the year, as the sun is moving, the position of the sun can be determined using a certain model here. The second thing, once we know now that where the sun is at a certain point of time, then what we do over here, I'm showing you an example of the DSM. And if this is the rooftop of my interest, we would like to then determine if sun is at certain azimuth angle and elevation angle. Through an algorithm, it is possible now for us to determine whether this rooftop will have shadows of the surrounding objects or not. Not only on the rooftop, we have this approach now that we can also determine on the vertical surfaces of these buildings, whether these buildings, these vertical surfaces, vertical walls will have the shadow or not. If we know it now, okay, so all these times when a certain grid cell of the DSM is being illuminated, at that time, how much is the irradiance which is reaching there? As I said, we will be making use of a radiative transfer model here. So we are using the hybrid model, and we are considering the beam radiance, which is the direct irradiance, and as well as the diffused. So what is coming from the rest of the sky? We also consider in our model the effect of the cloud cover. Then all these are integrated across the year to determine the final insolation value. I will show you one example because this is the project which was done for Bangalore, and my company Geo did this with the step for the BESCOM. Over here you see an orthophotograph, and on this orthophotograph you can notice over here how the shadow modeling has been done. So if I go to say on a certain day at 8 AM in the morning, that's how the shadows are. If I proceed with the day, the shadows change. Of course, because we are now able to model the shadows across the day. Not only across the day, we can model the shadows now across the year. And over here, I was trying to show you at every 1 hour interval. But we can do it for finer intervals also, 15 minutes, half an hour, or even less than that. Now, once we have done it, all those points which were illuminated by the sun, so how many times these points are illuminated throughout the year, and in those times, how much irradiance is reaching that point? Let us integrate it. If we integrate it, we come up with a map like this. So this map is showing you for the rooftops, the annual global horizontal irradiance or the solar insolation of these rooftops. So what you will notice, even for a single rooftop, there are certain parts which are good for placing the solar panels, while there are other parts which are not good. Now, this approach, the LiDAR-based approach, has got a limitation that you have to invest into flying in the area, and it is for the entire city. What about those individuals who want to install the solar panel on their rooftop, but their city is not covered with the LiDAR data? So we thought of another approach, and I say this is a bottom-up approach, which can be done by every individual. And today also, there is a lot of placement of the solar panels on the rooftop, but what we notice, the way the panels are being placed, not much consideration is being given to the local obstructions there. So the tool that we are generating here can provide that information. So how does this tool work? The tool works in this manner. First of all, we will be collecting a couple of images standing at a point, and then we'll be doing an analysis through deep learning on these images. So you will see the example here, and then I will present some analytics out of there. We have created an app. Of course, in the app, we ask for some general information about the person who are using the app, and then we create a project, and within that project, there can be multiple locations. For example, my rooftop. In that rooftop, I want to capture the data at 10 places. So that within this project, there are 10 locations where I'm capturing the images. Then we have in our app a way to capture the images. So what you see over here, these two arrows, they guide a person to capture the image in a certain manner. So by using this, a person, a user, even a novice user can capture the images. So what a user is supposed to do, only capture the images using the app. That's it. Here is an example of the images which have been captured. So first, by keeping your mobile or your smartphone at a certain elevation, the bottom images are captured. And then the app asks you to go up with the help of this arrow, and the images at higher elevation angle are being captured. So these are the individual images which have been captured at a point from east to west in that horizon. Now, each of these images, we have to convert into a measurement like the azimuth and elevation angle. So what we do using the smartphone sensors, it is possible for me to determine for the principal point of the photograph its azimuth and elevation values. That is possible for us. So once this azimuth and elevation values are known, we can then, with the help of the image geometry, with the help of the photogrammetry, determine the azimuth and elevation of all the pixels within the image. So that's the first part. So all the pixels in the image, now we know their azimuth and elevation. The second job that we have to do, because an image which is captured may look like this, out of this image, we have to now identify the sky part and the non-sky part. Earlier, we were using some traditional method, for example, OSSO algorithm. But the OSSO algorithm is not giving good results. So what we have done now, we are going for the deep learning approach. And in our deep learning approach, we are using the detector on true, and we are using the cityscape images to train our detector on true for this purpose. And the way the detector on true works for a given image, as you can notice here, it will identify some 180 classes. Out of those, one class is the sky. So what we do, the sky class, we keep it as a sky, and rest of the classes we keep as non-sky. I will show you some examples of our deep learning model, and it's performing quite good. Here the image is quite complex with clouds in the sky, and over here you notice the binary image which is saying this is the non-sky part and this is the sky part. The meaning is if the sun is behind this black area, then the sun will not be visible at the point where from the image was taken. Similarly, another image, another result, another image, photograph, and the result. Now, I will show you one example of this. Here, at a certain point, we are taking the images. So these are the images which have been captured using the app at one horizon, and then we elevate our camera, and then we are taking another set of images. These images are being fed to the server, and there in the server, this deep learning model is running and converting these images into the corresponding binary image, into the sky and the non-sky part. So at the end of this exercise, what I have that entire horizon with me, and in that entire horizon where the obstructions are, as well as for each pixel in this image, I know its azimuth and elevation angle. Then, as I said, we will be making use of the Grena model. So the Grena model tells me at a given time whether the sun, what is the azimuth and elevation angle of the sun. So from that information, I can determine whenever the sun is falling in this part, that means the point from where the images were taken, the sunlight will reach there. And if the sun is behind this non-sky part, the sunlight will not reach. So right now we are doing it for every 6-minute interval. Then, as I said earlier, at a particular point with this, wherever I'm taking the images, I'm able to determine for every 6-minute interval throughout the year. So that becomes 292,000 instances. Out of those instances, in how many instances that particular point is illuminated. And whenever the sun is illuminating that particular point, how much irradiance is reaching that point, that also can be computed. And of course, we are making correction for the cloud cover. Then finally, for all these instances, the entire irradiance which is reaching that particular point can be integrated to determine the value throughout the year. That's the result of the app. So we can do a lot of analytics with what information now that I have generated. Using this, I have a day analyzer for any day, because I have captured the images today, but with these images, I can do the analysis for throughout the year. For any day in the year, for example, this, at any time, whether that point is illuminated or not can be determined by this day analyzer. So if I change the time here, if I go say 8 p.m., so the sun will be here. That means the sun is not casting the rays here. Rather, at the point where the images are taken, we have got the shadow. Then for that location, where we have captured the data, we have now some more analytics. For example, how much is the solar power, how many sunlight hours are there, and that we can do weekly, monthly, and year-wise. For example, here is the result of 1 month. In that month, 1 month, how much is the total sun irradiance reaching that place? Same thing, we do it for entire year. So how the solar insolation at that particular point changes throughout the year. And if I integrate all of these, it gives me a value of 1188 kilowatt hour per square meter. That's the total value of the solar insolation at that particular place. Now, so this app, so we have now done the work in 2 ways. This is my last slide here. So one way, we are trying to address this problem at the city-wide scale, wherever the resources are available. But in the city-wide scale also, the LiDAR data or the aerial photograph can be captured only at a single time instance. They can't be captured every day. Okay, it's not possible. However, the growth of the trees, new buildings coming, it may happen, it may change, the scenarios may change in the city time to time. So citywide applications, yes, it is possible. We are doing it. We have done it for Bangalore. Similarly, the smartphone-based app, it is useful for individuals in those cities where we don't have the LiDAR data. Also, even if we have the LiDAR data, the smartphone app, because it is considering the surrounding obstructions, a person can use it to see what is the current status. And what we are doing now, we are comparing our approach with ArcGIS, Saga, Graph, because all of these have got this kind of approach. Our approach gives you the solar insolation also on the vertical walls. At the same time, we are able to generate a lot of data from our approach, and we are trying to now generate a couple of analytics for a city. For example, we can relate the availability of the solar energy with the health status of the people. So we have a scheme of working in that direction. Similarly, for the smartphone-based app, now at this stage, we have the total solar installation at the point where we have taken the observation. And we are now going to convert this into some kind of recommendation for the appliances which can be used using that particular value. And this app also, yes, it is almost ready and we are going to launch it soon. I think this is all for my presentation. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dr. Lohani. Amazing application and such an innovative use of technology for such a wonderful cause. Adoption of solar energy by putting solar cells on rooftops or wherever there's an opportunity. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker this afternoon is Mr. Dhruv Rajan from Geospatial. He'll talk on geospatial industry projects impacting SDG. Dr. Rajan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mathur, and thank you to Dr. Shamita for inviting me today for this session. I'm just going to share my screen and then we can start. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So just a quick introduction on Geospac first. For those of you who may not have kept up with the news, we were recently acquired by Ola, the Ola group of companies. Before that, I started Geospac in 2015 and ran it for about 6 years. Our focus was on building geospatial intelligence solutions using a variety of different types of data layers. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the projects that we've worked on that directly impact SDGs and provide a little bit of insight on how we built these tools and what sort of use cases we addressed. So as I mentioned, we started in 2015. We built various different tools, technology stacks, platforms for the ability to analyze geospatial data. And now we are a part of Ola, but we continue to do work in this domain, more related to mobility, of course, but we continue to build geospatial solutions from India and potentially addressing use cases worldwide. The first project I'd like to talk about is the work we did with UNICEF. So 3 years ago, UNICEF approached us for building a platform to understand connectivity of schools in rural areas. But in order to do that, they had to create a database of schools in small villages across the country. Of course, this data is not readily available. There are government sources where registration data is there, but sometimes it's not up to date. And so UNICEF wanted to look at this from a different angle to see whether mapping data or satellite data specifically could help in identifying these schools. As you can imagine, there were lots of challenges, and I'll talk a little bit about how we solve those. But primarily, it was to understand how they could provide connectivity, both from a traditional sense in terms of road infrastructure, but also more modern connectivity like internet, so that they could build capacity in rural areas to be able to deliver education via online methods. This was a UN-funded project that we did over a course of a year. So this is a one-slide sort of explanation on what we did. There's a lot of work that obviously went behind this. So what we did was we took freely available satellite imagery, which was provided by Mapbox. This was a world view data set, so 30 to 40 centimeter resolution. And we built up a lot of training data from ground truthing that we had an agency to help us with. And then we built a deep learning model, which is actually public. So you can go to that link and find this code that's available for people to use and build on top of. Essentially, we looked at typical structures within a school. So playground, building types, because as you know, schools generally have different configurations depending on which state you're in. So we did it for a couple of states in India, and there we found a couple of patterns that we were able to replicate and identify most of the schools in those states. So as you can see, we took the original along with some ground truth and then built some predictions. These are initial results that you're seeing. The final results, of course, are with UNICEF, not something that we can share publicly, but the source code is available for people to take and build up. Over the course of time, what we realized was obviously the definition of school in terms of a spatial context is very difficult to really define clearly, because each state has different sort of dimensions, different structures. And so we had to actually innovate on the types of models that we used. And solving this actually took us quite a lot of time. But once we solved it, what we decided was actually just presenting this kind of output wasn't very interesting. So we created a portal where anybody could visit and identify where these schools are and use this to kind of inform their decision making going forward. We added multiple other layers. So this is a typical GIS, WebGIS viewer that we created for them. We added hospitals and school locations, which were the main goal of the project. But we also added network connectivity. So where are cell towers? We collaborated a little bit with Geo to get hold of some telecom data, which they gratefully provided. And so we built up a viewer which is accessible now to UNICEF and their companies that work with them. This is just a snapshot of what that tool looks like. And what we discovered was essentially we were helping UNICEF achieve quite a few of these SDGs. So SDG 3, 4, 8, and 11, which is primarily around sustainable development, education, and healthcare, which is another part of the project. Some of the big learnings for me from this project was we all assume that satellite data can give us a lot of answers, but obviously you need high resolution and you need the ability to be able to write models that are able to deal with the uncertainty of the data. And second is ground truthing is often overlooked. And we realize that without a lot of ground truthing, it's very difficult to validate your results. So these are the sort of key learnings from us. And finally, presenting information is often the most important step, if not the process itself. So when we first went back with model outputs or code, very difficult for stakeholders to understand. So we spent a lot of time in creating an interface that's easy to understand and for people to actually get value out of that data. The second project that I want to talk about today is our response to the Kerala floods. So as you know, there was severe flooding in 2018, where large parts of the state were flooded. People didn't have access to basic infrastructure, and traditional means of gathering data like low-flying aircraft or drones were not feasible due to the weather as well as due to logistical issues. And then traditional satellite images that you saw in the previous slide, we couldn't use because of cloud cover, etc. And also the government was looking at very quick response because people's lives were in question. So they were talking about a couple of hour turnaround times in order to get updates and then dispatch forces accordingly. So again, we did a lot of work in the background, but ultimately the output was a simple dashboard like this. We did not have time to create a nice user interface. So this is obviously much smaller in terms of the front end effort, but the back end, there was a lot of things that went on. So we use a radar satellite platform, which is Sentinel, to really create data from places where there was a lot of cloud cover. So various types of different polarizations we use to figure out the level of flooding. We combine this with a digital elevation model to find out what is the depth of flooding, and then created a map, like a density map like this. We added other layers such as hospitals, major roads, as you can see in the layer list there, to allow for authorities to actually look at where they could make the interventions and how they could get aid to the people who were stranded in these areas. We again collaborated with Geo and a couple of other companies here, so IBM, AWS, Satshore, to put this dashboard together literally over a weekend. So we got everybody together in a war room and created this. The result of which was actually used by the Kerala state government to do the response coordination, and also various insurance companies, various types of other aid agencies use this for coordination and for response. So one example is a large insurance company did auto processing of claims based on this output. So people got the amount for their house damage much faster than they would have otherwise. This of course impacts the SDG 11, which is essentially reducing, improving sustainable development, but reducing the loss of lives and economic loss due to global events, catastrophic events. And then of course, part of which is also a disaster management toolkit, or I would say more visualization and platform that allowed people to interact and share data. This is something that we put together. Subsequently, it was used for the floods in Srikakulam as well, which happened 6 months after this event. So I think that's a kind of legacy that we created to allow for government agencies to quickly respond to these kind of disasters. So I know we're short on time, so I've kept this quick, but if there are any questions, feel free to post on the group and I can get back. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Dr. Dhruv. Two very impactful applications and very innovative use of GIS with AI machine learning. Thank you. Our next speaker is a former colleague of mine, Dr. VSS Rajan, who used to be my go-to man whenever I wanted to understand something about integration of GIS with AI machine learning. And that's what he's going to talk about this afternoon. The subject he's chosen today is Future of Geospatial AI, how geospatial artificial intelligence will change the world. Over to you, Kiran.
Yeah, thank you, Mathur sir and Samita Kaur ma'am. Hope my voice is audible, right?
Yes, it's audible.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, as we know, the topic is relevant to the SDGs and the future of geospatial AI, which have taken, that is something relevant to each and every SDGs is affecting more, and it can change the world. So, before we go into the topic, just give a glimpse about the Gordaletics. Is a newborn startup for 2021. Is a Telangana-based bootstrap company. So last year we have started, and we basically specialized in extracting the insights of the location data and creating the different type of analytics. So the Gordaletics is the team of a very the strong team who can directly force into the latest and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and geospatial sciences. So within the short span of time, Gordaletics has received a good number of certification and associations. And with the associations, we have bagged multiple projects, and with the local government, state government, central, and different type of corporate sectors. And we have enabled the geospatial AI of each and every client. So today, the first time, we are going to showcase in the public forum the one of the functionality of our product. And we can start with today's topic, how geospatial AI and the evolution and the future, and how really it changed the world, and it can impact each and every SDG concept. So before we start, let's understand what is artificial intelligence, right? Because the AI is likely itself to replace the routine job, okay, and it's like replace the repetitive task and make it automate way. So it's by itself is a buzzword. Artificial intelligence is a own definition of each and every user perspective and industry perspective and as a domain. But today, everyone has started focusing on AI, and people are investing a lot of money in terms of R&D. And to think about how really it impact on the regular and day-to-day activities. So when you talk about the programming and make it automation, there's a lot of buzzword you may heard about, like machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, which like my colleagues and peers like Geospatial and Geo has delivered. They have also utilized the deep learning concept, right? So how and what is geospatial AI? So geospatial AI is nothing but, when you talk about, it's a combination of location intelligence and artificial intelligence. Means when you have taken a map and preparing the data, and you have to make it automate, that becomes the geospatial AI. So in a geospatial field, if you want to make it work on automate, and you want to extract the insights from location data, either you can use the drone imagery, satellite imagery, video analytics, but it's relevant to the location and make it location intelligence, that becomes the geospatial AI. So what is the evolution? We all are in this field, like, and we have seen like last 2 decades, how really geospatial field has started utilizing the machine learning, deep learning, each and everything. Everyone has started focusing to develop the different type of algorithms. But every algorithm, when you think the growth of the past 10 years, like when you talk about the people like to transform the technology, like to make it the normal like digitization, like to automatic extracting the building footprints, automatic extracting the roads, classifying the data when you have getting the high resolution imagery. If talk about the 2 decades back, when usually we are getting the data of this only the source of satellite or like normal aerial survey. But today we are getting the drone. And with the drone, we are getting the very high resolution data. And satellites also becoming like creating huge impact, and we are getting the very high resolution data, centimeter level of the data. And this data can utilize to the, like one time you have to train the model, and automatically the next time it can extract the different type of information which you require. And this evolution can change the future. It's 100%, I'm telling, like the way I have seen in the past 5 years, and every industry, you can talk about the ESRA is the pioneer leader. Lot of data science tools are there. If you talk about the Hexagon, they are also integrated. Harris platform is integrated. Like the colleagues are also going to launch their products in deep learning. These are the part of the data science, geospatial data science. But along with the location data, if you have added non-location, like non-spatial data and spatial data combinedly, and perform video analytics, image analytics, speech analytics, text analytics, these all can really change the life. And that is the future. That's called the future of geospatial AI. How the future of geospatial AI will go? Just to talk about the target industries or SDGs, whether it's the completing the taking towards the hunger or sustainable cities or quality education. So everywhere the AI plays a role, and geospatial location we have seen in during the last 2 pandemic years, how we have survived, and how the location plays very important role. So when you add this location data, the map clearly explains you how the map is integrating with the AI. If you add any location data, and you can start to create a models, and that model can solve the problem, and which can create some sustainability, that become the future. And you can see the next 3 years or 4 years down the line, everyone only targeting to the geospatial AI. No one is like to manual digitization, like to take the big project, Swamitva project, NHA project. We are taking the like different type of high resolution data and flying the drone, capturing the data to make it the data in an automate way, to the generating the orthophoto and extracting the information, whether it's land parcel, whether it's building footprints, whether it's roads, whatever. So Geo AI play a very important role in the future, and it's already started. And it's not only focused one segment. You can see the transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, education, media, customer services, oil and gas, mining, each and every industry, every segment, Geo AI play very, very important role. Give you the example of the couple of things that how the future can change with couple of our in-house developed Geo AI models. The pictures which you have seen, like the girl sees one of our employees, she has developed the emergency system, like we have done the safety measures. So it's not only detecting the mask or not only detecting the helmets, also detecting the location where exactly stand. And immediately it can generate the alert so that health departments or health system can take the immediate decision what need to be applied. Same way the agriculture sector or disaster, like when the floods happen, lot of the trees got damaged. How we can identify what are the trees got damaged and what the trees not damaged. Whether how much crop is really infected by the pests or how much crop is really healthy crops. So manually it's not possible. With the help of the satellite imagery, remote sensing, and on top of just applying the algorithms, we can create wonders and they exact the requirement which can fulfill with the Geo AI models. And also there's one of the major thing we know, like object detection, whether it's car or flight, the defense, HLS, emergency, everyone started talking about the Geo AI. And everyone needs the machine learning, deep learning models to automate their work. And there's one of the beautiful, if you can see this picture of the yellow blocks, that is the greening. Like in urban area, now we are focusing to how we have to increase the greening. So climate action, where the climating role, where climate conditions, all these play a very important role. Getting the urban forestry is very important role. You are not doing, whether you have to go for any survey, it's very difficult because the buildings in urban areas, you can see 300 feet, 100 feet height buildings, 10 floor, 15 floor, and it's very clumsy. So you can't go for the manual survey. But when you do the drone survey, after that, if you apply the AI tools, whether it's machine learning, deep learning tools, and extracting this information and monitoring that, whether how the system, how the urban forestry is growing, how the greenery is there, that create beautiful, and you get a lot of insights with that. So like lake monitoring for the water side, water body extractions and all. So Geo AI plays, like I can say, each and every segment, like agriculture, which is required, is the main like food sector of the SDG, which plays like crop inventory, crop health, yield, water stress. So each and every place, the Geo AI algorithms playing very important role. You can see like there's a couple of, I can show you the video also, like the product, one of the part of the functionality I can going to show you in like just small 2 minutes video of that. So we have expertise and we are providing SaaS and PaaS based solution. It's completely independent of the device. Device independent. You don't need to think about the whether we require the high-end GPU systems. And same way, our algorithms, our model is giving complementing of the ESRI platform, Hexagon platform, ESRI Harris platform, OpenStand, each and every segment. These are only algorithms and deployed of any server, whatever the users are using. The urban sustainable cities. We know the smart cities, Samruddh cities are now the government is focused, and under the SDG also we require the sustainable cities the concept. So AI plays the smart city planning, property corridor mapping, land use, land cover, cadastral mapping, transport plan and monitor, and site suitability analysis, many more. And energy sector, as Bharat Lohani sir has already showcased one of the live demo of the solar panel. But the same way, like energy, whether you talk about electric, gas, water, telecom, Geo AI plays the improved operations and efficiency reliability. And it gives like clear the LiDAR data mapping, or you can talk about the drone data you can take and extract the information, or field photographs. And natural resource management. When you talk about the natural resource management with Geo AI, so what exactly it does, like basically, you can see this picture. The images, the map, which is clusters we have seen, the forestry, the mangroves we have mapped. So if the manually you can do, the 15 manpower and 1 month task, which can convert in the just hour and automatically extracted the each and every mangrove along with the prawns and the side. So water and mining, each and every place, like emergency management, disasters, floods, utilities, epidemiology, healthcare segment, each and every place, GeoAI plays very important, very important. So with that, I'm just showing the glimpse of, if you can able to hear the voice also, please let me know. There's a voice is also integrated after this. So this is the product. This is the first time we are showcasing on the public forum. This is the complete voice-based recognition and automate data extraction. Let's have a look of the small demo of the application side.
Hello, Garuda.
Hi, BSS Kiran. I'm Garuda, your voice assistant. How can I help you?
Select name.
Attribute selected.
Go to Steel Club. Go to Kendriya Vidyalaya. Go to HTPI. Reload map.
Map reloaded.
Load point data.
Point data loaded.
Activate clustering.
Clustering activated.
Deactivate clustering.
Clustering deactivated.
Create heat map.
Heat map created.
Remove heat map.
Heat map removed.
Select location.
Attribute selected.
Go to Sagar Nagar. Navigate to Murli Nagar. Add buffer 10 km.
Buffer added.
Export.
Data exported to your download folder.
Refresh.
Please press enter to refresh the map. Hello BSS Kiran, welcome to Garudalytics Online GIS.
Voice command.
Load raster data.
Raster layer loaded.
Sign out.
So this is how actually we have, this is only one of the functionality which we are showcasing. And this is the two way of the voice side. So you don't need to touch or use the mouse because it's a complete the new way how you can utilize the GIS. With the voice command, you can talk with the system, or it's only one side, or else it's a dual side. So as you have already started Hello Garuda, Alexa, Hello Google, same way you can start to talk with the Hello Garuda. When you talk with the Hello Garuda, system start enabling and start activating. And the beauty of this, you don't need to think about what type of file format and all, what type of device you are using. Simple drag and drop, whether it's a huge raster or it's vector or it's Excel or it's GIF, whether it's a document file, whether it's a PDF, whatever. It's a drag and drop. That's the beauty of online GIS. And we are appreciate this. This is the first time. So and apart from that, there's a couple of products we are working like G Defense. It's a Gordaletics Defense. The product is under development. It's top of ESRA platform. This is again core development on top of ESRA, ArcGIS Pro and server. And then another is the online GS. Just you have seen the only one functionality. Apart from that, there's a lot of functionality like you can say the building footprint extract, system will extract, if you say whatever inputs. So those all functionalities we are adding. And there's another, we have recently listed our product in GEM, that is a Gordaletic offline navigation system. So with that, I'm thanking and closing the remarks and hand over to Rajesh Mathur sir and Samita.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran. Amazing presentation. This is truly exciting. I think integration of AI, machine learning, deep learning with geospatial is creating pure magic. You can apply it, be data capture, data integration, deep analytics, and whatever. We saw some examples even at Dr. presentation earlier today. Very exciting technology. Our next speaker is Ms. Rakhi Ojha. She is GIS project leader at Prakhoj Private Limited, and she is going to speak on the subject of adding value with GIS for sustainability. Ms. Ojha, please.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'll just share the screen. All right, is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, yes, Rakhi ji.
All right. Okay, so hello, I'm Rakhi Ojha, as I said. Thank you for the opportunity for giving us this platform to speak over here. So I'm the GIS project leader at Prakhoj Private Limited, where we work towards adding value with GIS for sustainability of the organization as well as the environment. So Prakhoj is a 3-year-old company, and it has 2 verticals of biotechnology and geoinformatics, where we conduct research and consultation services for developing of applications and products and solutions for our industry partners, which we patent and license out to them as well. And under our GIS vertical, we provide services as part of consultation, outsourced data analyst, or even collaborative projects to the clients as per their requirement and convenience. And these are not mentioned, some of them is based with startups, industries, and even academic institutions that we have collaborated with to help them optimize and understand the processes better with the help of this new emerging GIS technology, and integrate their subject knowledge along with it to add more value. So under our GIS service areas, a few of the things that we provide our services in are not restricted to, though, are under spatial data extraction and pre-processing using location data and satellite, remotely sent satellite extracted data. Data processing and analysis with the help of machine learning where required, and collaborative research integrating GIS and remote sensing along with the subject matter. Environmental and GIS modeling, and also process modeling and building of web applications for our clients' process and to optimize their use cases. Because our aim is to help integrate the vast capabilities of GIS for maximum use in all organizations, be it startups or academic institutes, because we noticed that a lot of these organizations have a lot of relevant data, but many of them are either not utilizing it to get the accurate information, or they could add more value with more data sets and more information with the help of GIS. So a few projects undertaken that have overlooked some of the SDGs are one that we had done to track surface marine litter over Arabian Sea. So this was done to track the marine pollution around Gharapuri Island, which has a World Heritage Center of the Elephanta Caves. So we were put on task to identify hotspots of plastic pollution around the island and the mainland, and identification of the patterns of flow of surface marine litter over the region from each of the coasts. And this was to contribute towards initiatives under the UNEP program towards participatory marine pollution management as a collaborative research project. And also we had undertaken time series analysis on remotely sent satellite images over a part of eastern coast of India for the net shoreline movement changes to observed over a period of time, and for coastal management initiatives, which the information was further used for validation and for further validation of the data collected by our client organization, who was studying on coastal activities and the impact assessment on the coast on management and environment changes around the area. Also, for freshwater lake degradation study analysis was also done, where we studied the surface area change over a period of time and extracted water quality data, which was basically used to cover the gaps of shortages in the in situ data that was collected for the region. And this was used by the organization to help to spatially assess and help with the nature rejuvenation activities happening around the area for to reverse the process of degradation of the freshwater lake. Apart from that, we also worked on classification for land use, land cover, and local climate zones using machine learning, which has previously been used for urban area categorization and management. Also, we have helped extract DM from LiDAR point cloud data for management of road infrastructures, and calculation of land surface temperature for changing in the microclimate scenario of an urban area over a period of time, again to fill the shortages of in situ data available. And so some of the ongoing projects that we have right now, one is Zonocity, which is a web application that we are modeling for information on local scale information applicable for the online real estate market, where we would show and analyze the ranking of each locality within a city, which is on a neighborhood scale for use by say migrants or people investing in property and moving into the new city, etc. We have also collaborated, the Zonocity web application has also been selected for under the Startup Acceleration Program with ESRI Geo Innovation and India Accelerator for a period of 6 months. Further, we are conducting a collaborated research on vector-borne disease outbreaks across multiple regions with different environmental and climatic conditions to identify the main factors affecting it, so we could go ahead and try building a model to predict more such outbreaks in the future. And we're also working on a model to quantitatively, I'd like to emphasize on that, to quantitatively evaluate changes from nature rejuvenation activities that which a lot of them are conducted in our urban areas, say the lake rejuvenation or even tree plantation activities. So to quantify how such activities across the city is actually helping and to help them assess their progress over the years. And so simultaneously, we also look forward to and are working towards undertaking more projects from different organizations in furthermore different sectors to contribute with GIS. This is a basic prototype of Zonocity, which is ready as of now, which we would actually really appreciate if all of you could check it out and maybe give us a feedback, as we are still trying to build on that. So we'd like to think that we contribute not only to the organization but also indirectly to the environment, and provide large-scale and temporal analysis for different factors and add variables and parameters for inclusive assessments. We also introduce and inject and have tried injecting spatial analysis in the organization workflows where they weren't previously introduced, and also increase the awareness on the impacts of and to spatial environment parameters. and make use of statistical and machine learning models to understand the use of data, increase the scope of study and result validity, and also use of theoretical studies to develop real world application models, which is what we are constantly trying to do. And so yes, that was a brief introduction about Prakhoj and a few activities that we've been conducting for the past 2 years. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Usha. You said your company was set up 3 years ago, right?
Yes, but a company was set up 3 years ago, and the GIS vertical started off 2 years ago.
When did you start?
The vertical of GIS started off 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
Yes.
Considering that you are a very young company, I think you're doing some very, very interesting projects, especially
Thank you, sir.
sustainability. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we move on to the next speaker. He is Mr. Pranit Mehta. He is the Vice President, Business Development at Galaxy Space Private Limited. And he is going to be speaking on enabling sustainability using our satellite imagery. Mr. Mehta.
Hi everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a delight to look at such wonderful presentations and so much of learnings in the last few hours, must say. What I'll do is talk about what we as a startup at Galaxy are working towards in attaining sustainability, how we are playing a role in the ecosystem, and some bits and pieces for us to think through as a closing note. So I'll just save time and quickly share screen. Yes, I hope my screen is visible. I'm not able to put it to slideshow mode due to some error, but so yes. So at Galaxy, what we're doing is building the future of satellite image acquisition. The way we are doing it is literally what we're doing is going to space. We want to be eyes and brain in space. What do I mean by that is we're looking at a network of satellites that orbit not just around the Earth, but several other planetary bodies, and sitting at where we are right now, we should be able to gather information of any place we wish to, right? That's the eventual goal. And the first step towards that is actually putting up a constellation of satellites that can orbit around the Earth and give us information unlike any existing sources, but actually give us information that we can act upon quickly, that we can make much more accurate decisions upon. Right? That's the larger vision of how Galaxy is fit in. Currently based in Chennai, we are a 2-year-old startup, I'd say, and as a company, been a year. What we are doing is trying to impact the space, right? And when I say the space, there's a few things that we need to understand. So what does this space mean is there's a lot of applications, right? Ranging from applications around mining, agriculture, supply chain, and whatnot. All of these applications require data, right? And what's more common is they require data of large areas that need to be mapped. And all of these eventually track certain metrics that finally boil down to sustainability, that finally boil down to development and growth. So the way we are trying to impact this space is to actually give out data that can benefit these applications and hence help them get an inch closer to sustainability. Being a little more specific, what we're doing is we are putting up satellites equipped with Drishti sensor. So Drishti sensor is something that we are developing in-house, which is a unique combination of a couple of sensors. So giving us a good sensor stack that can eventually give us information beyond what typical sensors can just gather. So with our sensor, you'll be able to gather information about color, the texture, the material properties, and more importantly, all-weather day-night monitoring, right? Which means we are basically trying to use a mix of sensing along the optical and the radar region. So we can see through clouds, we can capture images even during the night time. These are some challenges in the industry today that we are addressing, right? So we're just trying to avoid certain limitations that can help us get closer to where we want to be. Our end data product, as you can see, is providing the most meaningful data set. So this data set will have multiple bands that we can perform analytics on. And we're eventually looking at a constellation of satellites. So as a larger constellation, the idea is to map the whole Earth in less than a day, right? And once we have that capability, which means we're actually gonna have the ability to provide real-time decision-making power to the customers, which means you don't need to order an image today, wait for a week for the image to get captured, and then a few more days for it to be processed. Probably it's even outdated by then. That's exactly the gap that we're also trying to bridge. What role do we play in the ecosystem is we are a data provider, right? So we fall in the data sources category. So we provide meaningful data to the geospatial analytics industry itself, right? So as the analytics industry, people skim through a lot of data. There's a lot of data cleaning, a lot of data analysis, and all of those finally resulting in reports that give out actionable insights. And those insights help us address these sustainability goals, right? That's how we impact. So Earth observation, we provide data, but how that data impacts, I do have a few examples that I'll go through in the coming slides. Now, the idea is, as a data provider, attack on those specific applications and say that for this particular goal, this kind of an analytics on our data set can actually help you get closer to achieving the goal. The broad picture of how Earth observation itself helps is in the 17 SDGs, like I'm sure we are all aware. And there's so many things that Earth observation can help us do, right? So as you can see here in the various columns listed, identifying the population distribution, infrastructure mapping, elevation topography, land cover, and so on. All of these applications are essentially at heart, they're algorithms based on data, right? So these algorithms can be mapped to certain sustainability development goals. And what is seen is Earth observation as an industry can impact 14 out of 17 goals directly, and the other 3 through indirect targets and indicators, right? Now, these are things like education, equality, and peace and justice. So they have indirect indicators based on how, we also saw some case studies in the previous presentations going along these directions. The broader picture again is Earth observation is one such industry that can impact multiple goals. And that's the kind of power that we all have. And that's something that we really want to captivate upon. Double clicking on such applications, now getting into a little more depth of where we head to, right? There's some example use cases. So taking attention to the left side first, climate action, right? The goal number 30. Now, if you look at the Antarctic ice sheet, it's a very important resource for our race as humans itself, right? So it's very important to be able to preserve it and ensure that we're tracking it on a regular basis. Why? Because if you don't track it on a regular basis, there's a lot of formation of large icebergs and eventually melting, and all of these because of the climate action, the global warming, and so on. And thus resulting in how the sea levels are rising, how lands are being submerged. And there's so much impact that eventually boils down, right? So there's like a domino effect, all starting from not being able to monitor the region. And of course, it's not, it's not so easy as we're saying that let's just go monitor Antarctica, right? It's not just in the neighborhood. So how are we going to do that is with the help of regular satellite imagery monitoring. And what does that mean is sitting again where we are today. So remotely, we can capture images of those regions, track how the icebergs are being formed, or when is there a threat? Is there a particular action that we can take to be able to preserve certain geographies and so on? There's so much of application. There's been a lot of work along this direction as well. Similarly, coming to a little more relevant example that we see day in and out is through infrastructure and industry. Now, in the urban regions, there's growing requirement for us to be able to map how towns are increasing towards development, how villages turn into towns and then into cities, and things start getting better and better. The infrastructure keeps growing. But what's challenging is to be able to monitor this regularly, right? And more importantly, the efficiency, the operational efficiency that we can get to. That's something that, again, satellite imagery in specific can help us solve, wherein satellite imagery can help us track large areas. For example, a city of about say 400, 500, 600 square kilometers of area. Now these cities can be mapped, and on a regular basis, we understand that there are so many buildings that have been constructed over the last 3 months, or so is the condition of certain areas, so is the population density that can be estimated, and hence so on and so forth. So with these kind of insights, it makes a lot of sense for us to be able to track how industries are growing and how essentially accessibility is getting better, right? Again, trying to impact towards the sustainability development goals. Next, what I'll do is I'll take you through some particular activity that we did at Galaxy towards a specific goal, talking about clean water and sanitation. And so the goal being enabling availability and sustainable management of water resources. And this is of course something very critical for all of us. And based in Chennai, we performed a case study. So we took a particular target and a relevant indicator for us, where we wanted to protect and restore how the ecosystems are. And one indicator being tracking how a particular water body is actually changing over time, right? And is it getting better? Are we losing on water resources? And what is the problem, right? These kind of questions are what need to be answered. So how do we solve it? At the basis, we get image acquisitions of a certain area of interest and perform some time series analysis, which means we get an overtime understanding of how a particular region is. For example, this is something that was very commonly spread out because it's very drastic, right? So the GIF that you see here is of a lake in Chennai. 2018 to 2019, 1 year the lake almost vanished. These are the kind of things that we want to understand, which, let's say, for example, me being in some corner of the city might not even be aware of such a thing happening. But if I am, I will make my steps accordingly. I will ensure how I can preserve. For example, people planting trees or saving water, so many other activities that can go on. Right? What we did towards this was a much more recent activity, which is about 4 to 5 months back, around November to December last year, wherein Chennai faced floods. Right? So we used satellite imagery to perform analytics and provide insights to decision makers, saying that floods actually affect a large geography, right? Where do you put in your efforts to tackle, to be able to address the impact? And we help them analyze the impact area and hence focus on certain geographies. So you didn't have to go through a complete 500 square kilometer of the city, but rather certain regions, and hence making it much more quicker, much more efficient. Right? This is a brief video that I'll just take you through on how satellite imagery, how we use satellite imagery and our proprietary algorithm to be able to detect floods and gauge the impact. This is a typical Google Map image that we see. And with satellite imagery, there is a lot more understanding that we get of the geography. Right? So this is an optical image. But the same image, if we look at during a flood situation, we usually see clouds, right? So it's like sitting in an airplane, so we cannot see through the ground. So we also use radar imagery, which is synthetic aperture radar that can see through clouds and give us images even during the night time. So we used a mix of both of them, optical and radar, and ran our algorithm. As a result of which we identified which areas were flood affected with what kind of priorities. Right? So these are regions that are highly affected. These are regions that are not so much affected, which means a day or so delay can be managed. These kind of analytics is what help decision makers in addressing the requirements. This is one such thing that we did. And similarly, we're also putting efforts on tackling forestry with certain parties and trying to step up how there are large scale projects and very impactful ones, right? So how can we play a role in that? That's how we are getting closer. The big picture that I'll wrap my presentation with is we try and follow the golden circle at Galaxy of why, what, and how, right? Why are we doing all of this is to achieve a sustainable future and increase the reach of satellite imagery. So it's no longer something that's limited to let's say defense or government or just the large players, but actually people like you and me can think of using satellite imagery. That's how we want this to become. And what are we doing to achieve this goal is building a repository using our own satellites. So we are looking to map the Earth, get data, and enable analytics, right? So there's a lot more applications. Today, there's flood detection. Could I, let's say, predict floods using satellite imagery or predict any disasters, which is also happening today? And there's so many applications that we might not even be able to think of, but that needs to be explored so we can make use of much more potential that exists. And how are we doing it is by capturing our data set, by making it much more sustainable from an economics point of view, so that it becomes affordable and you don't really have to pay several hundreds of thousands of dollars to run an analytics, but actually get access to high quality imagery and at the same time not really pay a huge chunk, which means making it friendly, making it accessible and affordable. So just ending on a question is, how are we answering these questions, right? What is our purpose? What are we doing towards it? And how are we getting closer? Right? This is what we follow. And I think it's been a great opportunity. And thank you so much for the patience and listening to. Happy to take in any questions later in the presentation.
Thank you, Pranit, for a wonderful.
Basically, the primary area why we started working on water is that we have to understand that there is a complete nexus around water, whether it's food, whether it's energy production, whether it's city growth, everything we talk, it's directly related to water. But if we don't have the sustainability at water, we will not be able to meet any of these things. And the water is it's a finite ecosystem in our world. So even we see our demands, we have demands in every industry which needs water, whether we talk about fabric, automobile, cloud, the agriculture, every industry, whatever we are doing and touching our life needs water. But water as a setup is finite because your fresh water resources limited to just 2%. And that too is basically under threat from climate change situations. So what we have to understand that how these things can be leveraged, the system and information can be leveraged to build a solution or build an ecosystem which is sustainable. So the primary 6 areas which we see, and obviously the 6 area is not exactly the way we identify. A lot of research is done by ADB, World Bank, and they have formulated these things. So the primary concern is, the first thing is awareness, that people should know where is the water, how much they have, how much they are accountable for, and how the water is getting transported. Basically digitizing the complete life cycle of better water, and then understanding how rainwater can be put to its best use, and then investing in sustainable irrigation. The reason I'm choosing irrigation, because if we see all the country which are primarily agrarian or under development phase, they use 70% of their water resource in irrigation. If we go to the UK, US, and these developed country, they use 70% of the water for industries. So there is a slight contrast between how a developed country uses its water and how underdeveloped country uses its water. And then we have to understand how the non-consumptive use and non-conventional source of water can be leveraged. Then understanding environmental flow and ensuring they are there. And obviously at last providing the policies that can basically help to gain sustainability. So if we see the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, out of 17, I think these 8 are directly related to water. So you can see it's more than 50% of goals are directly dependent upon water, whether we talk about no poverty, zero hunger, the clean water, the affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities, life below water, life on land, and climate action. These all together have a great impact on water. So if you remove the water component from this, and then you will feel that how they start shaking up. So water is some way inherited in all of these sustainable development goals. So we'll talk about more on how we have developed a system around it and what exactly we are doing in this domain so that we can contribute from our side towards sustainable development. So the whole story is defined in 2 categories. One is on the water side, one on the agri side, and we'll understand it with the help of our implementations. So I will start with the first thing which I spoke about, that visibility is the key. Without visibility, you can't actually do anything. You can't manage, which you can't measure. So that's a famous quote in data science domain. And that's what we leverage here. So if you see one of our implementation AP volumes, you can actually see how much water the state has and where the water is, in which format the water is, where it's getting used, what are the use cases it's basically empowering. So all of these things start coming in as soon as we have information on the water. And this information on water, you can't actually directly derive it because you have a lot of components here. You have rainwater coming in, then rainwater is getting flowing on the surface, joining the surface stream, seeping into the ground. Then the losses are happening. They are going into the agriculture field. They are converting into the hydropower. Then we have water coming from the estates above and going to the estates above. In case of transboundary river, even the country, it's coming from separate country, going to the other country. So it's difficult because you have to have a data sharing around it, a complete ecosystem of management, how you can actually leverage the information around both the hydrological side, a spatial side and non-spatial side. When we combine the information through remote sensing, the sensor informations, the crowdsourcing informations, then what we understand is the total water available. Sorry. So one of the things I will talk about here is groundwater, say, because you have to understand groundwater, how it is. So currently what you're seeing is information through sensors, but the sensor will give you point information. So for the point information to convert into a heat map, you need to have the algorithm. So here we are leveraging GEC algorithm by Government of India. So there are various of agencies which have developed the scientific model to calculate how the aquifer behaves, what kind of water can be given in the given situation of land use, given situation of land type, given situation of aquifer. And then you can basically interpolate the whole sensor information to a complete thematic view. So that's what we are doing here. Then the potable water and water supply monitoring. This is one area which is very important because although the consumption here is very less, but they are directly related to the growth, the demand of population. So how it will happen? So basically there are three components of it. Component number one, you have to understand from where the water is coming, the source, how it will travel to the habitat, where it will get the treatment, the complete asset. So all the asset part has to be integrated in the system, and then to give you the visibility of how the complete water, digitize the complete life cycle of water from source to habitat. This we are doing under water supply monitoring. Then water quality monitoring. The water quality monitoring happen either through the lab, like we are seeing right now, the Ganga water quality report, which basically done through the lab testing report and then ingestion system. But this can also done through direct sensor install and satellite based indexed as well. So a lot of basic information in terms of turbidity, in terms of algae formation and the spectral change. All those things can also be analyzed by the website, and that's what we are doing here in water quality monitoring. Then the real-time water body monitoring. I think recently, just before my presentation, the Galaxy peers have shown how they are using satellite imagery to basically understand how the water body is changing. We are also doing something similar using free satellite imagery, where we are trying to understand how the water body is reacting in the time and the space. So you can basically see how much water it has, how much water it had in the historical assessment, and going forward, how it has been put to the usage. So that we are getting through microwave and optical data. So we are using them here, and we are basically doing the calculation on how much water it will store at any given point of time. Then encroachment. So other aspect of the water body is that it has encroached a lot. In government of in our country, India, Supreme Court has recently talked about that a lot of encroachment happened on water bodies. So government has to come up and implement such kind of solution through satellite, so that the understanding of encroachment can be better and removal process can be executed. Then the watershed modeling, because a lot of money going into watershed planning. You see the entire NREGA from last 50 years, we have spent billions of dollars into that, and still it has to yield the result. So the problem being is that the hydrological assessments are not taking place through the scientific models. They are mostly done through the at the Gram Panchayat level by the understanding from people in which area how water flows. And by applying such kind of technology, we can really do the entire hydrological assessment through a system, and we can identify where should we build a structure for its maximum benefit at what cost. And then it basically yields in the complete DPR planning for that watershed. Other one is reservoir operation planning, because we know the reservoir are the only thing which transports water in time. So they are like, they are the time traveling agents for water, because you store in this year and then goes to the next year. So monsoon to the non-monsoon season, you are transporting water in time. And the major problem here that there are various of the stakeholders. You have environmental flow, you have hydropower generation, you have drinking water demand, industry demand. How to take care of it? Because this is dynamic in nature. So you are transporting one thing into time, which is very much dynamic. In the time, a lot of things will change. I will say everything will change. So here the concept of adaptive water management is introduced, and we are using a lot of AI models in terms of from the crop demand side, from hydropower peaking side, from the environmental side, and then calibrating the reservoir operation curve to achieve the maximum productivity out of that. So that's what we are doing here. And that's all happening in near real time. So you can see in the current screen, which is right now we are doing for one of the a chain of reservoirs in Telangana, the Kaleshwaram lift irrigation scheme, and where you are seeing a simulation how the reservoir should be planned for a given use case. So currently it's for irrigation, but you can plan for hydropower or any use case. You can basically run the model and see the simulation and understand, and then you can put down your variables of weather parameters, consumption parameters, and then the result will keep updating in near real time. The same similar thing has been implemented for the complete Narmada Control Authority basin, the Narmada basin, which is basically have 14 major dams, and that has a huge area. And the output of this system is basically to ensure the planning happens in a way that there is no conflict. It basically avoid losses due to flood, enable equal deficit sharing, and maintain the environmental flow. That's what the whole system is achieving right now. Then the inflow forecast, basically by leveraging satellite DM data, you are able to understand how much inflow is getting generated at any point, and then how it will translate to flood if it rages. So you can do a flood analysis, and then how this is completely inundating the region. So you can see the inundation map right now getting generated. So how the water is basically capturing in case of flood. And then the assessment of the same using microwave satellite data, how much area it has inundated. The same has been implemented in Periyar Basin in Kerala. This year it will be commissioned for the flood early warning system. This is the system which you are seeing right now for Periyar Basin. Then the similar concept goes on to irrigation side, because there you have to understand the farm. So our system basically digitizes the farm using satellite imagery, high resolution satellite imagery and AI. So you can see that from the images, the farm boundary has been predicted and the farms has been categorized. So once farm is categorized, then obviously what crop it's sown in the farm is basically identified using the again satellite imagery, and then it aggregates the data saying how the overall crop analysis looks like for the state. And then once you do all the analysis, again you have to come back on the canal release if it's a canal area, because you have to improve water use efficiency. And there the entire canal system is visualized, and on top of that the satellite and sensor data is coming. So here you are seeing the complete canal network, and then the remote sensing crop data overlaid on the canal network.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yeah, I'm wrapping it up. And then you have the in-season water demand on the crop, which is visualized again on the remote sensing. And then you have the complete crop growth monitoring, which is basically gives you the understanding of how your crops are reacting. And then once irrigation happens, you monitor again through satellite that yes, irrigation has happened finally. And then the crop irrigation prediction goes till the farm level, because everything is happening at farm level. Weather forecast act as input, and in case of any extreme event, the weather-based model helps you understand what is the crop loss in any given region, and it facilitates early season drought in case of extreme weather conditions. So you are stay ahead of the time whenever you have any kind of crisis. So overall, we are trying to cover up the sustainable approach towards building a solution using AI and remote sensing in the space of water and agriculture. That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mishra, for a very nice, informative presentation. With that, we come to the end of this session. Just a few quick observations. It's been an exhilarating experience for me listening to these awesome presentations. Each of these young companies are doing very innovative work, extend adoption of the latest trends in technologies, be it Geo AI, big data analytics, web and cloud, LiDAR, you name it. And what I particularly like was the approach towards problem solving, not just technology for the sake of technology, but each and every presenter talked about a specific problem that they were trying to solve in relation to sustainability, water, solar power exploitation, and so on. very, very impressive. And I'm sure it'll be a challenge for DST and others who are developing content to pick and choose what they can showcase at the UNWGIC conference. Dr. Shamita, over to you for your concluding remarks. You are muted.
Thank you, Mathurji. I agree with you. It was, my word is, it was a mind-blowing session. The kind of innovations that were showcased here, especially with relation to sustainable development and the SDGs, I think was, absolutely fantastic. When you look at the SDGs, I mean, I also work in the sustainability sector and sustainability education. One of the things that we're always looking at is putting data in the hands of the common people so that there's better decision making. And especially with the app that Dr. Lohani showcased, you're putting this right in the hands of the common man so that he or she has the ability to decide how he would like to use the energy at their fingertips. I mean, what can be more fantastic than this? I mean, it's really very exciting to see this, and I'm really waiting for you to roll out this particular app. And Dhruva's presentation was a perfect example of SDG 17, which is partnerships for the goals. So the value that a private enterprise can bring to the public good, especially in times of disasters, was very aptly showcased. And it's only the private sector, I think, that can really work at such short notice that Dhruva's team did, to put together an application that was even used by insurance companies to settle claims. I think it's absolutely very good. And of course, Dr. Kiran, your presentation has made me think about the kind of curricula that we need to have. So this requires some really deep thought of how academicians now need to really orient their programs to actually meet, what industry is doing and what industry actually needs. So, so like I said, we may engage with you more to see, how we can bring all of these things into curricula and, make our manpower sort of fit for this new revolution.
Sure.
Even Rakhi Oja, I think it was really fantastic looking at all the different applications, especially given that you're a new startup, which really reiterates the point of the vibrancy that startups, can bring to the Indian geospatial ecosystem. And of course, with Galaxy Eye, that's a question I wanted to ask. This is again something which is so exciting, having data in your hands that you can make quick decisions in, cutting across all the red tapeism and, bureaucracy. I mean, even as academicians today, we rely more on Landsat and Sentinel, rather than the Indian data. So I think this is something, again, which is very revolutionary. I just wanted to ask you a question about the cost, if you're still there, Pranit Mehta. I mean, how does this really compare with the commercial satellites, and how would this compare with terms of costs?
Right. So basic comparison is the data set itself. Right. So the way we are trying to capture is actually have a mix of optical and radar sensing. Right. So today's commercial satellites either have optical sensing capabilities or SAR capabilities. We are trying to get both of them on a single platform, right? So that adds on to a lot more capability. And even cost-wise, because we some kinds of onboard processes that we're doing, which make things a lot more economical, right? As simple as, let's just say, if I purchase optical from satellite A and SAR from satellite B, I'm basically paying for 2 structural systems, 2 power systems, and so many other things, right? But in my case, like in Galaxy, all of these things get shared, which means the cost reduces, and even operationally, we're performing some onboard processes. So at large, giving a better data set in a much more economical manner. I hope this clarifies the question.
Thank you very much. And of course, Amit Mishra ji, you very rightly said, it's visibility, the visibility of data to make, better decisions, as Dr. Lohani's application as well. So I think, we had a chair in the morning who made a comment that the involvement of the private sector in the space arena is really going to bring about a 360-degree change. And I think with some of the examples, with all of the examples that we've seen here today, we are surely going to see this transformation, sooner than later. And with the two new initiatives, maybe we could have a quick comments on this as well. One is the InSpace, that is the public and the private collaboration platform of the Government of India, and also the NSIL, the New Space India Limited. How do you see the role of these two organizations in catalyzing the private sector participation? Anybody?
Samita, what actually today, if you see the latest, the budgetary which the government has placed out, where the government has focused for the private sector and also focused on the geospatial segment. And more of the government, I can say, whether it's health sector or it's defense sector, the people are talking about the PPP mode. Public and private partnership to give to take into the next level of the technology, because the private industries as investing a lot of time and money both the side to bring out the new technologies into the era. And also government is also seeing these changes which the private sectors and with the help of now AGI is also part of the maximum government projects. You can see whether talk about the Swamitra, NHA and any major project. So that's where I can see the major impact of the next 2 years, which can give more opportunities to the collaboration segment. Like defense, DRDO also now focused to get the startups as a partners, not in the as a client or a customer. So as this collaborations with the government and new startups and the support of the Indian government, which is getting in the startup and the MNCs and MSMEs, that create a huge change, I'm thinking.
That's true. I also think so that, partnerships probably bring around this transformation. Dr. Lohani, any comments?
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you very much. So I think if we see, because I have been in the industry for quite some time and in the academics and industry, because my startup is now around 12 years old, no more a startup, it's a full-fledged company and operating with good strength and doing n number of projects in n number of domains. And many of those are quite relevant for the SDG goals. Anyway, having said that, I have this experience of the transformation which happened in India. And if you see, 15 years back, 20 years back, how the startups will be seen and how an entrepreneur will be seen by the government organizations, it was a disconnect, very, very, big disconnect between these two categories. And an entrepreneur, always the thing will be, okay, he's to make profit, that's it. And the government departments, the academic institutions, universities, they do not like making profit. So that was a very big disconnect. But I see the way the journey happened, like in IIT Kanpur also, we started our incubation center, and in our incubation center, the students and the faculty members, they're invited to start their own ventures and whatever research they are doing, taking that research to the society. That was the idea. And then IITs, they started opening up for this idea, following the Western models. And when we say opening up, that means the entrepreneurs, whether from within the institutions or from outside the institution, they were then getting the support of the institutions. They were getting the support of the IITs in terms of the expertise, in terms of the a very good address, so that because you are incubated within an IIT, so you get a very good reputable address. Also in terms of the facilities, because our IITs have got lots of facilities. Then I noticed, this is something 15 years back, then this journey has happened in India, and I think now we are in an ecosystem where the startup is the buzzword and is a very respectable word. Entrepreneurship is a very, very respectable word now. And this we see, whether it is from the DRDO, inviting the startups to work with them, to use their facilities, to use their data, or from the ISRO side, Again, what we see in our government departments, we have huge expertise. We have lots of data which is there in the archive. For example, Sort of India is rich with the data. We have a large number of facilities. Many of these facilities are not being used throughout the time. So many of these big facilities, sometimes become white elephant. But on the other side, they are hungry entrepreneurs. They are motivated entrepreneurs, and who need to have an access to these kind of data, these kind of facilities. So this PPP mode, or whatever the partnership mode that is coming up, is definitely the right thing to happen in India now. And it is being promoted, supported by the government. And now it is the turn of the entrepreneurs, turn of the startups to make use of these opportunities. So I think absolutely great time for our entrepreneurs and for India, for the Indian economy. Thank you.
I just think it's like, the right time, the tipping point, when we always say that this is when, revolutions happen. So I think we are really at this tipping point. And Mathurji, if you agree with me, apart from the wonderful case studies that all of these entrepreneurs have, portrayed today, I think one of the common things which comes out, which should be really showcased, is partnerships. Because each one of these examples are a very good example themselves of, partnerships, which is the key point in achieving the goals. So yeah, so those are my comments, and thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Mathurji. We are actually on time, although there weren't a lot of questions raised. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. So finish on time.
We actually finished on time, though we started late, but we really kept to time.